Yeah, good. Okay, so
Yeah.
the question was if you guys can tell me just a little bit about the historicity of this Kigali base.
So 1994, we lived in Kenya working with Ywam, and that's when the genocide happened. And it happened to us, we were praying for Rwanda, and there were many refugees coming from Rwanda to Nairobi, and we find ourselves we are between the two tribes, Hutu and Tutsi. We wanted to reconcile them. God said, I want you to go where the problem is. And 94 July, that's when I came for the first time. Took a bus from Nairobi to Kigali. I knew nobody, I just came.
Wow.
And the story was not good, it was negative. But inside me I had peace.
Wow.
About Rwanda, about the people. So I stayed here for 2 weeks. I decided to go back to Nairobi and share with my family. And that time Mary was coming from France also for a mission. And I was telling them about Rwanda, what happened, and they had many questions. Hey, but Mary said, let's go back and see what is happening. So we came together. So we came and we were going around hearing the stories, and a lot of tears from her. She was crying all the time. But same time she had peace about the nation. And we stayed for 2 weeks and we went back to Nairobi and we wanted to share with our children. And they were all excited. Wow. Let's go there and minister to the kids. It was the confirmation for us to come to Rwanda. So we moved here 94 December as a family. Just 2 of us and 2 of our children.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's when we moved to Rwanda.
That's
She can
crazy.
continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we came and I don't think we had a big vision, you know, we had like a heart, and all we said is let's go and weep with those who are weeping, and when God puts the words of comfort in our words, then we bring the words of comfort. It felt like we will figure out as we go. So like Method said, we came December 94, and we really didn't, we had only $150 for support, for which was designated for our children's school fee. So when we got here, there were no schools really, but I decided I would be the teacher, and I can pay myself the $150, and so we can support the family. Housing was expensive because every organization had come. It was very hard to find housing from our 150 plus food plus everything. So we stayed with a girl who had from America who had done a DTS in Kenya. She was a pilot. So she was a pilot, so she was here to work for Mission Aviation Fellowship. So she had a big house, so she could let us stay with her for about 3 months. Yeah, about 3 months, you know, but she was a single girl. She was busy, she was very introverted. We had, even though we had 2 children, biologically, we had just recently taken on my brother because my dad had also died. So the kids were 9, 7, and 5, very active, you know. So she was very kind to us, but I constantly felt like they are touching her things, they are messing up her home. So we prayed, and God gave us finally a house that was in our range. It was very different from what we had been used to in Kenya. Like it had a kitchen out, a pit latrine out, you know. So life was a bit challenging. In the beginning, the kids would go to the so-called bathroom and they're like, you know, and so yeah. So that's really the beginning. But when we got this house, in the sitting room we set up. We had a typewriter, old typewriter, and our dining table became the prayer place and conference, and slowly, but quickly actually. Some other Ywamas began joining us, you know, especially from Uganda, and we began praying together and finding what to do, and So so like my dream had work with the children, and my children, our children and me were like work with the children. Method was running around trying to register, to develop our constitution, and to do all the administrative things. So really by 95, maybe mid 95, we were kind of settled, you know, like settled, and we began praying. And actually one of the members came back and said, I think I found a future property for Ywam. So we all came and visited, and we liked the place and found the owner. It happened that I was a widow from genocide, and she said, whatever you want my property for, before my husband died, he said this property will be designated for God's work.
Wow.
So she brought us like where the gate is, and she said he stood here and he said, right here will be the gates to enter this property for God's work. So she says, are you pastors? Do you want to do a church, or do you want to build an orphanage? What do you want to do? So we are like, we want to do something bigger than all of those, you know. So but for sure you can be secure. We want to do God's work. So really that is the beginning. It was all bushy, it was gardens, it was banana plantation, and so we began praying. We didn't have the money. I don't remember where the money came from to buy the first piece.
The money came
land.
from Happenland.
Really?
I think the Happenland money was to build. I think the property money, I think Annie Peterson
Yes,
raised
Annie, yes,
that,
yes.
you know. It could have come actually from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, those countries.
Oh.
Yeah, because Annie, who was our leader then, was from Sweden. And I think we shared with him, we were praying together. So he probably raised the first money. The money he's talking about from Happenland was what we used to build the first house, which is where like Margaret and that is the first house on this property. Yeah, so that the money came from Happenland. I don't know how they raised it, I don't remember, but yeah, the Method and I went to Happenland, and there was this gift of money. Oh, we were guarding it like our souls, you know. So we came and began building the house. We all, the small team, worked together. We dug the foundation and carried the stones. We didn't have like workers, you know, so it was our simple work, you know.
So how many were you guys on the site at that point?
And the first time it was
5, 6.
like 3 couples. Yeah, 3 couples. Probably like 7 or 8. You know, 3 couples, like 2 single people. I don't remember, but definitely small team. Yeah.
So we bought the property, and we had no idea where the money would come to develop it. So remember, we used to. There's a lot of banana plantation. We would come and worship the Lord and enjoy the Lord and praying. And a visitor comes in. This is the place where we are going to have the ministry. No building. Until one day there was a missionary young man with a friend of ours. They came to Rwanda and they stayed with us in the house
in our house,
in a small room. And we are telling them, this young man, he had done duties in Uganda. He was from Switzerland, and we didn't know him. You know, he looked simple, like our friend here. So we are praying and sharing. His last day of going back home, he said, "I'm going back home. My parents or my family, they have a business, and we will be giving a tithe of our business."
Wow.
From no one, somebody we didn't know. Very simple young man.
Wow.
And he went back to Switzerland and he worked it out. Every 3 months they gave us the first money. Yeah, so that's how we started.
Wow.
So little by little, and then some other people used.
So you started building just
So we began with the house.
yeah.
Like where we are now, it's on the extreme end, which hosts now 3 families. So yeah, it hosts Margaret's family, Christine and David's family, Mama Venancy, and now actually in the one room area there is another guy who is also a former Ywam. So that was the first house, and then the second house was this extreme end one also, yeah, which now hosts Odethi's family and another young guy called Ray, you know. Yeah, so those were the first houses which we used for everything.
Yeah.
They became the DTS accommodation, the DTS classes. They looked different from what they look like now. They were basically big halls, like they were like 3 rooms every house, you know, 3 rooms, and we put like temporary partitions, you know. So we used here for DTS and guys, and then we used there for girls and some families. Yeah, and dining, everything happened very close. It was only 2 houses and a lot of banana plantation. And then the third house was actually this one, which was an office. This was an office block,
Wow.
which was being built at the same time as the first house at the entrance, which was preschool.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that began as the preschool. Yeah, so yeah, then
Maybe
everything.
you can share about the first school in the sheet.
Yeah, so when we moved here on the base, we had the DTS and we had the preschool. But the preschool was
vocational training.
on the vocational training. Yeah, and the vocational training. The vocational training, well, actually these first houses were designated towards vocational training.
Okay.
Yeah, so but we did carpentry, tailoring, and bricklaying.
Because after
for
genocide, there were
carpentry.
so many young people here. There was no school, there was nothing happening, and many of them were on drugs, and we would give their life to the Lord, and then after that, what they do.
Yeah.
So we say they give their life to the Lord, we bring the vocational, we teach them a skill, same time that we disciple them.
Wow. So that would be more locals
Yes.
being brought into. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, yeah. Yeah, so we began the preschool actually. So before we moved to this property, we rented properties. We began at DTS before we moved here. We began at DTS, I think, in 1997, 98 maybe. Yeah, 97, 98.
It's a few years after you came here the first time.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
before we had anything here, yeah, and so we rented the house somewhere here in Kigali, and the place where we lived, our first home, actually one of the guiding reasons we chose it, besides that we could afford it, it was built like that, you know, so it was like funny built, and when I looked at it, I'm like, I don't like it for a home, but I like it for a school. So anyway, so when we were able to move out of our house, then we converted it into a preschool. Because from the beginning, children and young people were really on our hearts. So we did the preschool there, but you know, you were renting, so paying every month. And now, I think I hired like at least 2 more teachers. So financially, it couldn't work. So I closed the school, had all the furniture at our home, present home, and began looking at how to put it here on the base. So I went around, I did outreach, like I know this place so well, the neighborhood of this place so well. It was very different from what it is now. It used to be like remote, like people who lived here from their great-grandparents. It was like very poor part, you know. It wasn't even Kigali then. It was what they called rural Kigali, which was like outside of Kigali. So I visited all the neighborhood, and I just would go in a home, and whenever I would see kids, I would just go like, I don't know, without thinking I would be saying, we are going to start a school.
Wow.
And they would say, oh, that is very nice because there's no other school for little kids. And I'm like, I just have a problem. I have no building. Would you like to come help me build?
Wow.
And like in 1 week, I had a lot of people who wanted to help build. But of course, now they needed the materials to build. So, so all we had was like iron sheets, you know. So I was like, let's dig, you know, let's find just poles, you know, and we did just like a quick school that we could build ourselves without any engineer. And
Wow.
and decorated it really nice. I remember people came, like some well-to-do people who are better off than others would come and go like, looks like a temporary thing. And I'm like, yeah, but they will be permanent with time, you know. And they would walk in and they are like shelves, it's done well. And they're like, well, it seems like you know what you're doing, but something is missing. So anyway, so the school started then, and then the DTS started here.
And what year was this?
Oh, do you remember that? 1990.
8 something. Towards the end.
99 maybe? What, you meant you thought?
98 was the end.
Maybe 1998, I don't remember. I don't 99, yeah, so anyway. Yeah, so those were like the first ministries, the DTS, the preschool, and the VTS.
And the street children.
And then we were doing a lot of outreaches, really a lot, you know. I'm like, we were a few people, but the outreaches were buzzing, you know. It was like,
and the widows.
you know, they were doing all kinds of things. Most of the ministries that still exist actually started then.
The widows and
We were doing outreach to widows, outreach to people with HIV, ministry to children of people with HIV, street kids, you know, and just like visiting different homes, you know, and doing evangelism and introducing Jesus to the families.
Because of the genocide, there were so many kids scattered, not knowing where their parents are. And because of the genocide, there were so many women who were abused, and then they got this disease of HIV. So there are so many with HIV and so many street kids with the parents who are dead or who ran away. So there was all kind of confusion. And we are busy doing the children ministry, the widows, and you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. Can I ask how have you guys seen, just from back then when everything started, basically from scratch, and just kind of, as you mentioned in the beginning, you felt like you were just going to figure it out as you go. When you look around in this neighborhood now, how can you guys see the difference?
There is even no comparison.
Really?
It's hard to compare. It was like some rural kind of area, you know, kind of remote. There was no good road.
This road we used to walk on the main road. It was very dusty and muddy. At that time we didn't have a car, so we would walk from here to the house, and our hair turns red because of the dust.
Like in the dry season.
In the dry season.
And there was no car. There were no buses
There were no
coming.
buses around.
So it was quite remote.
We
But
only used
God
the
has
bus.
spoken to us. God had spoken to us, and He had shown us this would be part of Kigali soon, quickly, you know. Yeah, so I mean, the amount of money we bought this property, if you were to sell it now, you would be a billionaire, you know. It would be a lot of money. But then it was like rural, you know, so some people already wanted to go somewhere larger, you know. Yeah, so it's very different to compare. Like we are surrounded with big homes, people with vehicles, you know, and then even to get just a lift from here to get to our house was difficult. It was bicycles basically, you know, or you walk, you know. So we walked quite a lot, and we lived like, if you know where the tax park is, we lived above there. So it was quite a good walk, you know, yeah. So, but we were young and it didn't bother us.
Yeah.
It didn't bother us at all. If I remember, I was like, it was okay. It was fine, you know. You met people, you talk to people, you introduce yourself. It was fine to do that. So it looks very, very different. And I mean, the two houses we began with, you know, they also look different from the others that came a bit later. Yeah, so it was just like we still went as God opened doors. You know, we had no clue. We had an idea and a desire and a prayer, but we didn't have like a master plan of this is what will be like. Rah, rah, rah. You know, we were just like, oh, thank you. You know, so it grew. It grew with every phase.
We had no master plan. We didn't have like we work 5 hours because people at that time they need somebody to listen and to pray. And people with pain, you don't give them time. You know, you just sit. You listen, they cry, maybe you cry with them, and it goes on. So we were working many hours.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
either children or women, anybody at that time it was just listen to people.
Wow. So I'm wondering how was the process of, because now it is an official Ywam base, how was the process of getting with that, and how did you guys establish this as a Ywam Kigali base in Rwanda?
No, like I said from the beginning, Method was very involved with the administration part. So we did paperwork, we developed a constitution, we did registration, then it was with the Ministry of Justice, and then later on it went on to the Ministry of Local Government. He still did that. Now it's within the Rwanda Governance Board. We recently actually redid our constitution to suit the current law, and we registered. We knew that part, you give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, you know. So we had the heart, the burden, the ministry vision, but to be legal and acceptable in the country, we needed to do what the country was requesting. And when we came here, we were sent from Youth with a Mission Kenya and Youth with a Mission Eastern Africa. So Annie Peterson that we talked about, that might have raised the first money to buy this property, to buy part of this property, was our regional director. That's what they used. It was actually called area director. He was our area director. So we came here as sent by Ywam and as commissioned and placed by Ywam generally. But when we came, just like it works, I think everywhere else in Ywam, we had to be legally compliant to the legal laws of the country, and we have always done that very well, I think, and faithfully. I mean, he's very diligent with that.
And we were accountable to the regional office and the regional team with other countries. Because later on, when he stepped down, I was appointed to be the regional director. So I was here sometime moving around, encouraging the teams and praying with the leaders there.
Amazing.
Yes, yeah.
Amazing. Another question I had was, so you mentioned that you came here and you didn't really have a grasp of the vision yet. If I can, you guys are sitting here now, after all these years, and you've seen the place grow, you've seen what you guys came to as a very humble beginning, and it's become an amazing place where people have met Jesus and it's changed lives for so many. What would you say that, what is the vision that you guys really carry, and what is the one thing that you guys want to be carried on and passed on in this place that you guys have put so much into?
Yeah. That's a very good question. So even though we didn't have like a clear picture of the whole vision, we had the foundation of that. We wanted to make disciples, that we put in to make disciples. And we have come to a realization of that. We are very grateful, but we feel like the frontiers are still there, you know. We still feel like there are more people that God needs in the leadership of his purposes and his ministry beyond. So I can speak personally, and Method can speak personally, you know, because the school I began, the children I began with are now graduates, you know, and now graduates. Some are working, some are very influential, you know, and I'm like, that tells me several things, including that I'm growing old, you know, but not tired, you know. But I'm, it just tells me that there are more people to pass the baton to and to challenge to realize God's purposes. Our time and this time is a little bit different.
Yeah.
There are more resources, communication, everything is like more in place. So while I feel like we were these people that were very ready for any hardship ahead of us, I feel like it's lacking in most younger people, and I feel like it's an anointing we can pass on, because I think to do God's business, to build God's kingdom, requires that willingness of,
Yeah.
I will lay my life down, you know, laying down my rights, laying down my life, and I feel like that is very strong in our generation, and needs to be passed on appropriately to the young people. Yeah. So, but the vision, my vision is really to see other leaders rise up in all areas of society, to be able to bring discipleship there and to continue to see change and transformation in our countries. Yeah.
Yeah, as we are very convinced that God is going to use us to raise young leaders who will continue the work here in Rwanda, and also who will pioneer the work in Burundi and Congo, which is happening today. As she said, we have many young leaders that we trained. Our pastors are doing different things in the government. Now the work in Burundi, the people that we discipled here, is growing. The work in Congo is growing, the people we discipled here. So even here, we have other bases in Rwanda. We have two in the east, where they are doing the same thing. They have Rise and Shine School. They have a vision to do the DTSs. We have another location, they want to do the same. So we look back and say, Lord, thank you for allowing us to be used by you.
Yeah.
You know, so we are so grateful we were able to come, although it was not easy, as she said.
Yeah.
It was not easy, and now we are praying that God is going to bring more leaders whom that we are going to
Yeah.
to take over and do what we have been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So say-
more.
Yeah, and more.
Yeah.
So if you have a group of young leaders, say we're going, it would be amazing to have a group of young people that are just really on fire for Jesus, but they're wondering how to start. How would you guys encourage them?
I think it starts with your relationship with God and Him sharing His burden with your heart, and then you trusting Him. You know, trusting Him. So you take steps at a time. You know, I think it's, while planning is very key and very important, but in our context within Ywam, it can be intimidating.
Yeah.
Because you make this large plan and say, we always had it in our heart to establish a base. We did a leadership training school, we wrote a project, and within the project we actually wrote this base.
Oh.
You know, I mean, but we didn't kind of dwell on it, you know, we were just like, it was an exercise, it was a great exercise. I don't think we could ever raise that much money to build those many buildings and set up a place and the maintenance, you know. But being able to trust God and trust Him as He leads, you know. So go slow, you know, phase by phase, you know. If God has put on your heart, it's young people, it's children, and the best way to reach them is going to be a school, it's going to be evangelism, it's okay. If you start with 5, don't go like, oh, but my vision has 1,000 of them. It's okay, it might be 1,000 when you're not the one, you know. It might be other people reaching their 1,000, but probably those people are the 5 you reached, you know. So, I mean, as much as God allows you, humble yourself, follow Him, trust Him, and believe that what he's putting on your heart, it's primarily his burden than it is yours, you know. Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very good. So if there were just a few, what would that be?
Yeah, you want to go? I speak more than you do.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's more areas to be captured for God, you know, and so that God will raise more workers in the harvest field. I feel like the harvest is plentiful, and the scripture remains true. The laborers are still few, you know. That God will put faith in the people, they will see him at work, they will allow him build their testimony. Yeah, so really that God will call more laborers into his harvest field. That means people who are willing to go, people who are willing to support them through prayer, but also through generosity. Because really, if there wasn't in our testimony, if there wasn't people who supported us, this story wouldn't be present. So this story is not about Method and Mary. This story is also about Annie and Robbie Peterson. This story is about Dominique. This story is about John. It's about people we can name names who came, who prayed with us, who called us, who gave financially. So may God, that's our prayer, may God increase his laborers in his harvest field, you know. So those who are willing to go, those who are willing to hold their arms and support them, prayer, those who are willing to share their finances.
As you said, our desire, our prayer today is that God may raise up young leaders. We continue the work, you know. At the moment we have our structure is leadership team. We are not the boss, but we have young people that we work together to be mentally. But we need more to come and continue work with the team and expand the work. There is a lot to do in this nation, which needs people, she said. As we were telling you, we are doing a lot, but nobody takes it out. We need people with the communication. We need people with the skill. We need the people with the vision, with the heart to serve. We need people who want to be available for the Lord, you know. As I told you, we are starting the work in Eastern and it is growing. We need leaders there. We need the leaders here, you know. So that is our prayer at the moment, you know. We are not young anymore. I keep telling people, I used to jump in a bus, go to Nairobi, how many hours? 3 days in a bus. But now, even driving the car to I'm scared.
Sometimes I still feel young.
Sometimes
I feel really old.
We need the young people with the energy. This, what the other name is?
Energy.
What was
the
game?
Jeff,
the game.
The
we
game,
need people like
the game.
with the game, you know. So that's what we are praying for.
That's good.
With the skill, with the vision, with the passion. Rwanda is open for the work of the Lord.
That's
East
good.
Africa is open. Congo is open. Burundi is open. We need teachers. We need administrators, you know. So that's what we are praying for. That is the need, you know. And we need people to stand with our young leaders financially to support them, you know. It is a struggle still. Our churches are struggling, even they don't understand about mission. Think you're working for the mission should pay you.
Anything more on that?
Yes, as I continue on that topic, you know, we need partners, churches to partner with us, business people to partner with us, individuals to partner with us to be able to accomplish what God has called us to do.
That's good. That's good. Thank you.
Prayer partners. You can really pray for us. People interceding, pray for us. To be in the mission field is not easy. It's like you're in the field where you need backup of prayer.
Right.
That's good. Okay, I have a final question before you guys can, if there's anything that you guys think is important, you guys can fill in that. But I want each of you to tell me your favorite memory that you've had on this campus throughout the time you've been here.
My favorite memory when I see young people coming to the mission and see how the Lord changes them and makes them who they are today.
Yeah.
You know, I get excited like the group I was telling you, because I remember each one of them, how they came when they enter here the first day in the DTS, and then now these people are who for the Lord, and you know, the fear, the hopelessness they had, you know, and now they find the Lord there. You know, I
That's
say, Lord,
amazing.
thank you. It makes me, you know, the first time I saw the group, I was really crying,
Wow.
hearing their testimonies, you know. Yeah, because the background here is very difficult. Many
Yeah.
of them go through difficulties, you know. The hatred of each other, you know, because of the history of the nation. But how God has changed them, forgave each other, and God healed them, and now they don't see the difference. They are the brothers and sisters, you know.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick one favorite memory, but for the purpose of making a choice, I think one of those is when we graduated the first group of children from primary 6. So we were growing the school from preschool, primary 1, until everything was a miracle. We didn't know where the next class would come from. And so we were graduating the first group of students in our own hall. And the kids were, I had come up with an idea that children who had their gowns, you know, their graduation gowns. This is 11-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, some 10-year-olds. So the preteen group. And I had come up with an idea that girls would be matched in by their dads and boys would be matched in by their moms as they come to receive their certificate. It was so beautiful, you know. It was very celebratory and colorful, but for me it was packed with testimony of God's goodness, you know. So here we were. The first group that graduated here were only, I think, 11 children. Yeah, only 11 children. But it was beautiful to see them. Our own daughter, our youngest daughter, was in the group. Method walked her in, you know, so we call names. You know, you just kind of, I felt like we are not only graduating primary kids, we are ushering these kids into teenage, and we are honoring them, you know, and it's just like we are celebrating God's faithfulness. And I think that was one of them. But, you know, it is for the purpose of just choosing one. There are many more, many more exciting memories, you know, remarkable memories. Yeah,
That's very
just
good.
seeing what God is doing.
It's beautiful. Thank you.